I've covered JoJo fashion, I've covered Bleach fashion, Sailor Moon, but of course I can't neglect Yu Yu Hakusho. It's near and dear to my heart, and I know a few people are interested in this one as well, so let's get into it. Hola, my name is X, and I like to experiment with fashion as well as talk about whatever the hell I want on social media whenever I feel like it. And in this video, we're finally getting to sparking some Yu Yu Hakusho fashion and style conversation. And at first, I wasn't sure if I had enough thoughts or material to make this like a substantive video. But after doing some brainstorming and some clever research, I think I arrived at a good story. So let's go ahead and get to the agenda. Of course, first we're gonna just give some quick background on the anime. I'm gonna share some fun facts and really what I like most about the anime in general. Then we're gonna shift over to what I like about the fashion and style of the anime more broadly and more macro, and even get a little bit of a nod to a creator that's covered some really great basis for Yu Yu fashion and style in the past. But then we're gonna get into the main section of this video, which I'm most excited about, which is going through the 4 to 5 main characters of the series, discussing how I feel about them, identifying a bit of their personal style, and then the fun part, I think, is assigning them a designer brand that I feel like aligns well with their personal style, or that their style from the anime could evolve into. And yes, I do use some visual aids provided by AI. All right, let's cover some of the facts. Yu Yu Hakusho is a manga that was created by Yoshihiro Togashi in the year 1990, and it was serialized within Shueisha's Weekly Shonen Jump magazine in Japan between the years of 1990 and 1994. Togashi is also the creator of the popular manga and anime series Hunter x Hunter. So if you're curious to see more of his present day work, well, there you go. An additional fun fact about Togashi specifically is that he's married to the creator of Sailor Moon, Naoko Takeuchi, who we know is also very stunning with her fashion designs across all her different characters within Sailor Moon. What I find curious is that the two didn't meet until 1997. I would have thought that based on the incredible and timeless and iconic style that they each have within their series, that maybe they would have crossed paths beforehand or cross-pollinated ideas, but no, they didn't meet until 1997, and I believe they got married just 2 years later in 1999. The first anime adaptation of Yu Yu aired in Japan in 1992 and ran until 1994, but I believe that Yu Yu first premiered in America on Toonami in 2003, and that's when I discovered it. My preferred anime lineup at the time was Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball Z, and Tenchi. Tenchi is such a throwback. But when Yu Yu and Rurouni hit the Toonami scene, I was hooked. And this was before you could like record via like DVR. So I had to catch the new episodes week to week or else I would miss it. Speaking of storyline, the anime follows Yusuke Urameshi, a rebellious and delinquent teen that performs a heroic act but dies in the process. But then he's revived and becomes a spirit detective, and then it turns into like a big tournament thing. Like, it is such a compelling storyline. And in my opinion, and I think a lot of other people would agree, that it absolutely perfected the tournament style format or formula for animes to follow. I loved Dragon Ball because of that tournament style saga. It was really engaging. I feel like you can kind of cover a lot of bases within a tournament arc. But Yu Yu came in with incredibly interesting and deep characters, awesome powers and abilities, and just a compelling multidimensional plot line. Like, it really served. Don't believe me? Well, Yu Yu has sold over 50 million copies worldwide, which I feel like is an obvious numerical representation for its cultural impact. But also, Togashi won a manga award in 1993 for Yu Yu Hakusho, just to show how big of an impact and an influence that series had, not only at the time, but how that impact continues to shockwave even to present day. A couple more things that I want to elaborate on with regard to why I love Yu Yu so much. One is the supernatural spiritual aspect to this series. I'm a very spiritual person. I feel like when I was younger and even throughout the course of my life, I've had what I would consider supernatural experiences. I love the idea of the extraordinary existing right around us or right in front of our eyes in the ordinary. And that is definitely a multidimensional experience that I felt like Yu Yu delivered to me, especially as a young teenager, just coming into my identity, coming into understanding the world. It added such an extra fantastical layer layer to my imagination, to my relation to anime, and that is why I think YuYu still resonates with me so deeply. Of course, a common theme within animes is characters really being disciplined and showing hard work and perseverance to overcome training or obstacles to save the day or really become who they're really destined to be. And I find, especially with the spiritual angle, and we see this a little bit in JoJo as well. I haven't watched Bleach, but I imagine it exists there as well, where the characters have to really tap into themselves and go inward and really cultivate and dig deep to bring out these magical powers that not only help themselves, but help them connect with others in new and amazing ways. And that is just something that I love so much. I also love live action shows like Supernatural because it also has a lot of those different components and just the camaraderie that you have with these people in this other realm, or these people who understand this other realm within the ordinary. Just that kind of dual experience is so fascinating. And the other part of why I love YuYu so much is the character archetypes. And while I feel like the 4 main YuYu team members embody certain archetypes to an extent, there's that spiritual element that comes in that gives it a little more nuance, that doesn't make them so completely cliche and gives them a lot more depth and development throughout the course of the series. The characters are rooted enough in reality to where, whether it's their personality or their sense of style, but they obviously establish a clear blueprint that other series were able to build upon in subsequent media. Now, before we get into why I love the fashion so much, I want to give a quick nod to a video done by Internet Pit Stop, Fashion and Anime, addressing each character's personal style and just highlighting some overall great points as to why the fashion and style within YuYu is so aesthetically pleasing and is so timeless. So the 3 main points that he covers that I want to elaborate on: the nuance in character personal style. And this ties to my point of overarching character archetypes and why those are so effective. There's some nuances within each of their styles fully represents a bit more of their personality and edge. The variety of the different outfits that we get / outfit rotation, which is why I was surprised that Togashi and Takeuchi maybe didn't collab earlier, because the fact that both of their animes within such close proximity to each other have such great outfit rotation, just very coincidental. Part of avoiding having a series feel flat or too stagnant is having an outfit rotation. It just makes the series feel more dynamic, more alive, and that there's some momentum that we're a part of somehow within time. We see that 90s is a culmination, I feel like, of some of the experimentation with fashion and different clothing items and aesthetics that took place between the 70s and the 80s. We had different kind of athletic wear, different types of pants, flares, different just elements that made the standard, more simplistic fashion in the mid 20th century a bit more interesting and a bit more lively, and gave it a bit more spirit. But that's a great segue into an overarching observation with regard to some very strong overlaps between 1950s fashion and 1990s fashion. First of all, I don't see how anybody could look at the characters, particularly Yusuke and Kuwabara, and not get a 1950s greaser vibe. Even though a lot of the style and fashion of the outfits fits within what people were wearing and what was trending in the 90s, a lot of that mirrors and echoes a lot of the same clothing items and even arrangement that we see in men's fashion in the 1950s. I would like to just break it down to 2 distinct styles. We have classic Americana style and the more progressive style of the 90s. When we look back at what men wore in the 1950s, around that time, there was definitely a huge surge of more casual items. In my research, I found that at the time, there were some emerging Japanese brands that were really inspired by that classic Americana, American aesthetic. And when we look at those brands and the styles that they were emulating, it's very much giving Levi's jeans, you know, that classic all-American boy next door look. And while there were men wearing that within 1990s Japan, again, that was some inspiration pulled from overseas in the West. So when we look at the outfits that the guys are wearing in YuYu, I feel like there's a clear distinction where we get more of the kind of tighter silhouettes, the tailored fits that feel more 1950s, but then we get more of the kind of baggier items and more of the layers and more of the dimensional outfits, which I feel like is more of the genuine 90s progressive. I don't know, maybe that's news to me, but I just found that to be such a fascinating correlation and maybe just progression and evolution of style. Let me know if you agree or you disagree, or maybe if you feel like there's some other extraneous influences that are contributing to YuYu fashion as well. Now let's get into the characters specifically, discussing who they are, what's so great about their style, as well as where their style could evolve and some brands that align with them. Starting with Yusuke, like I said, I came upon Yu Yu Hakusho when I was like 13, 14, and that's the same age as Yusuke, as well as many other main protagonists in an anime, but with that spiritual angle and just with him being such a misunderstood character, I just felt like I had a much deeper connection, a misunderstood identity, but is capable of so much more than maybe people ever could realize. Out of all the anime characters where I kind of wanted to have their abilities, I remember Spirit Gun being a ability that like I really wanted. It felt like, unlike Dragon Ball Z, like I don't have to like get in a certain pose or like do too. I felt like if I could just channel it into a gun and I could be so powerful like Yusuke. Like it just felt so tangible despite that crazy, deep, wild spiritual angle to the show. As far as his style, he is definitely the king of streetwear out of the four main squad members. He's in all the images where I feel like I could find, he was the one that was mostly rocking that casual, laid back street style. There's still even a variety within that. It's not too one note. He's wearing cropped jackets. He's wearing slim fit, somewhat loose fit jeans, something a little more rugged, something a little more polished. I love the range that he's able to exhibit, even within what feels like somewhat of a limited aesthetic. But that is just a good testament to the range that people can pull off with proper styling and just finding the right elements to balance out for a unique personal aesthetic. So pretty much knowing that he's a bit of a goat of men's streetwear, and that's probably something that he's not going to let go, because I would imagine that he'd be a bit of a rebellious spirit even beyond the scope of the series. Diesel is not only this kind of crazy, wild, baggy, grungy kind of aesthetic, it can also be dressed up with the right pieces, and they really do have some striking accessories. But when I think about his iconic outfit with that bomber jacket, sweater, and flannel shirt, just the layering of it all screams Diesel. And I feel like he could have so much room to play with a number of different items and a number of different silhouettes within the Diesel brand. I would love that evolution for him, and he definitely has the attitude to pull it off. Next, we have Kuwabara. I remember being annoyed and also just like absolutely amazed by him. He's that obnoxious, we all need a Kuwabara in our life. That obnoxious person who just honorable at the end of the day and so loyal. I remember just like thinking as a kid, like, cause I didn't have very many friends. I was just like, if only I could have like a Kuwabara. He is so underrated, and recollecting about the series, it just reminded me how much I actually really miss and appreciate and respect his character. As far as style, I've noticed that a lot of his outfits, I feel like kind of mirror Yusuke's. He's definitely deep within that streetwear aesthetic as well. And just with that whole pompadour greaser 1950s vibe, he definitely has that like kind of tough guy edge and aesthetic that he's able to pull off. But I don't want us to sleep on him, because he is pulling off some classier, sharper looks, and he does it, I think, a bit more than Yusuke does. Again, at least in the images that I found. So he's a really good balance between that kind of streetwear aesthetic, as well as maybe something a little more polished, classic, and timeless as well. And so with that being the case, just because I feel like he has a little bit of a traditional angle to him, I wanted to give him Prada. At first, AI recommended Levi's, and I alluded to Levi's when making the 1950s, 1990s comparison. That's just a little too denim on denim and a little too casual. Prada would be a better fit, because they are also not afraid to be a little playful with retro kind of styles. They do dabble in obviously some kind of casual aesthetic, but they're ultimately a little more legacy and a little more classic. The high honor that Kuwabara has, and like a bit more of a moral code, he fits more of that, not too rugged, not too progressively street style like a Diesel, something that's a little more pared down, but allows him to flourish and grow within a sophisticated angle as well. Next, we have Kurama, and honestly, he's my favorite character. While I might have identified just like plot-wise with Yusuke, Kurama was that mystical character that just kind of comes in. I love like a rare, mystical, elusive character that just kind of comes in, is like, isn't the main, but like is solidly there. I loved seeing him fight. Rose Whip is like such an iconic move. Honestly, his whole aesthetic was a huge input for my queer identity in some regards. It's crazy and wild. I just love how androgynous he is. He's one of the first anime characters at the time, like when I was growing up, that like really served androgyny and something ethereal and outside of the typical male archetype. That's hugely inspirational, especially for a young unidentified queer youth. As far as his style, and as I've heard other people allude to, he's a fashion model, right? He's giving that not only sophistication, but that softness. He's highly intelligent, very calculated. It's exhibited through his approach and strategies in battle, but he's also just really flamboyant with the powers that he has, the floral and plant like components, the roses. So he can definitely pull off something that's a bit more high fashion and outside of maybe the range and realm of what a Yusuke and a Kuwabara could have access to or would find fitting for them. And so with that, I thought, and I definitely gave thought to this, that Valentino would be a good fit. At first, AI was like, give him Gucci. And I'm like, no. Gucci feels a little too cheap to align with Kurama's ultimate style. It dabbles a little too much into the playful, a little too into the streetwear in the youth. I feel like there's just a little bit more elegance and grace to Kurama that needs to be fully captured. When I was looking at the men's pieces, they do play with some varying silhouettes that I feel like could align with what Kurama is able to pull off. Great movement and even some drama and flamboyance in the clothing. I also do feel like Kurama could pull off something a bit genderless as well, and maybe a bit more fluid, maybe incorporating some women's items, just to give a little extra touch of softness, femininity, and grace to his aesthetic. Next, we have Hiei, and while not my most favorite character, even though I was definitely an emo-ish, angsty teenager, there was just still an internal softness or camaraderie when it came to how he felt about his team members at the end of the day. Like, they all were down for each other, including him. What I found most fascinating was in battle, and I think even the wiki touches on this well, because he's so arrogant, he would often get ahead of himself in battle. So I was always so intrigued to see when his kind of facade or his character cracked, what he would do to overcome. Even within that, despite being a character that may not seem he has much room to budge, we saw some interesting growth there, which is still just making him feel rooted, real, and somewhat relatable. Now, as far as his style, similar to Kurama, they both hold themselves to a certain different standard. So he still has some sophistication about him, even though he does dabble in some of the streetwear and some of the more relaxed styles that all the characters do at some point. He is still wearing some traditionally formal Japanese-inspired garbs, martial arts oriented as well. And while his overall vibe is definitely giving alternative, I don't feel like he's like a full grunge street style person. There's still an air of, I would even say, class to his aesthetic as well. So when we think about a fashion house that aligns with him, I was wondering if maybe like a Rick Owens would work, but honestly, Rick can be really out there. And like I said, I still feel like Hiei is rooted in some level of kind of like class and sophistication. So I thought Alexander McQueen was a good fit. They dabble in some kind of darker, edgier, weirder stuff as well, but there's still a level of avant-garde to their clothing. And I feel like there's definitely a level of avant-garde to what Hiei is able to embody as well as exude. There's still room for some casual pieces that make him feel very everyday, but there's also some really creative, high fashion pieces that fully flex his potential. And last but not least, I definitely wanted to make sure I covered Botan out of any other characters because she is an absolute vibe. I like when there's like a contradiction between like a Grim Reaper-ish, Soul Reaper-ish character that turns out to be like really nice and cheerful and bubbly. That's some duality that I feel like just echoes the overall series. And she just seems like so cool and just like she's helpful. She could have been made bitchier, which I honestly wouldn't have minded, but not too much that I distinctly recall as far as her interactions with others. But what I do remember is her style, because the girl did not come to play, and you could easily pluck her from YuYu, drop her right into Sailor Moon, and she would be right at home. Just with the variety of outfits that she's been given and that she's serving. And they're from different aesthetics. And that's what I loved about Sailor Moon, is like there was such a wide range of styles, and Botan is literally covering it. Not only maybe a little masculine, but plenty feminine as well. She is across the board. And so that, and to me, when someone's able to exercise a wide range, indicates some level of experimentation and openness to something progressive and new. And so Issey Miyake is definitely a brand that I think addresses some of that. Very practical pieces that are rooted in quality, staple items that really work for a personal uniform, but also present some experimental cool silhouettes, unique fresh items, colors, and just things and elements that work well together for something that's a bit more novel and out of the box. And especially with like a bright and refreshing palette that often is across the brand, and that aligns with her personality. So I definitely would love to see her play and dabble in something like that. Voila, another successful anime fashion video down. Of course, let me know what you think about the style, the vibe of Yu Yu Hakusho, as well as the use of AI visual aids in this case. I actually like this format, and I'm probably going to keep it. It should hopefully be less triggering, less problematic, but I'm sure you'll let me know that as well. And there's plenty more to come. I can tell there's a craving for some longer formats, as well as some more casual formats that might allow the community to be a little more interactive. So let me know what you're thinking in that regard as well. But until the next video, I'll talk to you later.